Hello, welcome in to the second episode of the Bonkers Cards podcast. I'm your host, Gordy Bonker. Welcome for joining in. Very excited to have you guys in for a second episode this week. To start off the show, we're going to be talking about some updates of what's going around the industry and the hobby, card shows that I've been to, and then we'll get into some of the different cards that I'm looking to invest into with some of these updates that are coming into the hobby and much more. So thank you guys for checking out the pod. So this past week, I did not go to any card shows, partly because it was the big Philly card show weekend. So the Philly baseball card show is one of the most well-known baseball card shows, and especially on the East Coast, it's been referred to as the East Coast National. So a lot of my local, smaller shows were not in town this weekend because most of the big dealers were out there. It's a little bit of far of a ride for me, so I didn't make the track out there, but I've heard excellent things. Most of my Instagram has been some pictures from the Philly show, some awesome vintage cards out there that were able to be picked up. But for me, I did most of my buying this week on Facebook, which you guys will see coming out in the Facebook group. If you guys want to join the Bonkers Cards Facebook group, check out, it's linked to my TikTok profile. I can drop the notes in the show notes here as well. But I had some awesome pickups for me, most notably this SGC 8 Hank Aaron, which came in, as well as a couple of mantles, which went very quickly, again, out on the Facebook group. So it was an awesome week for me on the pickup side. One of the really cool pieces I want to talk about from last week that I didn't get to was the Topps Industry Conference happened last week. So the Topps Industry Conference is very important. All the top executives from Topps, bringing everybody from the hobby, from card shop owners to content creators, to anybody within the collectible space interested in what Fanatics is going to be doing with Topps, now that Fanatics owns Topps. So there were three big takeaways that came from the show that I think everyone needs to know about the Topps conference. First and foremost, they are looking to 10x the hobby. And that means 10xing the number of collectors. That means 10xing the value of the cards. They're very focused on investing heavily into the hobby and marketing Topps more aggressively. So that is one of the big takeaways. Obviously, Fanatics has a ton of money that they're going to be pumping into this over the next coming years. I think we've already started to see it with more commercials. I don't know if anybody saw that J-Rod commercial of him cooking up Topps cards in the kitchen. It was pretty funny. You don't usually see baseball cards in TV commercials, but they've been putting that online. They've been putting that on Facebook. They've been putting that on commercials for sports games. So it's very noticeable that they're going to start pumping up their total marketing budget for Topps and related products in the future. The second thing that they talked about was innovation. So Topps is really focused on trying to make new products, new exciting things that are going to get more people into the hobby that aren't already there. One of the big announcements was this Tom Brady card. There's going to be a Tom Brady first Bowman card. He was drafted to the Montreal Expos. The picture of him on the card is him wearing an Expos jersey and a catcher's uniform. This is going to be a really big chase card for those modern collectors out there, and I think it's going to be good for the hobby. It's going to bring more people into it. One of the last pieces of innovation that Topps was really focused on and wanted to announce was bringing unique moments and memorabilia into the cards. So think about it like this. Topps and Fanatics are able to partner to get a lot of the on-field memorabilia from big moments into the cards. So if a big name rookie, let's say Adley Rutschman in his first career home run, they're going to be able to then go out and pull first base from that home run trot and then take that base and put it into 100 cards and make it the Adley Rutschman first home run card collection. They'll be able to do that with any key rookies. You know, any of the big pitchers, their first strikeout, they're going to take the mound off of the field and then cut up the pitcher's mound from the first strikeout of that key rookie and put that into the card. So when you think about the long tail effect of this, I mean, if you could think back to having second base for Hank Aaron's first double, or, you know, a piece of home plate when Jackie Robinson stole home in the World Series. Fanatics is thinking about this from a long-term view on how to get more collectors into the hobby and excited about new products. So this is great innovation overall, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. The third and final thing was there's a couple of edits to what type of products Topps is going to continue to launch. So they did announce they're cutting the opening day product launch. I personally was never a huge fan of Topps opening day anyway, so I think it makes sense to start being more concentrated in some of the products that they're going to be releasing. There's a couple of different Bowman products that they're going to be cutting as well. But they're trying to concentrate on getting higher quality product, which I think overall is good. So that's kind of the high-level summary of some of the key takeaways from the Topps conference. But what I wanted to talk about today was actually more focused on what are some of the tail effects going to be as it relates to the vintage hobby. So obviously you guys know I'm a vintage collector. This is a Vintage Cards podcast and YouTube channel. And I wanted to talk about what Topps and Fanatics investment is going to be and how that's going to affect the hobby. Now, I mentioned that Fanatics wants to 10x the number of collectors in the hobby. Now, at first glance, you might think that that's more focused on 10xing the number of modern collectors because Topps is producing modern cards. But that's not the case. If we see 10 times the amount of collectors that come in from different sports verticals, so more sports fans that don't currently collect now get into sports cards, that's going to mean that there's going to be a large increase in the number of vintage collectors. And if this happens, you want to be positioned to obviously invest and have the right collecting pieces for when the hobby increases, right? So I wanted to put together a list of the top 4, my Mount Rushmore of the 4 cards you want to own ahead of Topps starting to increase their marketing spend and hopefully 10x the hobby. So I want to get into those four players right now, and I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments of what 4 vintage players that you would invest in ahead of the hobby, hopefully 10xing. So my first player that I think is extremely important to own on a vintage card perspective is Willie Mays. Willie Mays is currently the oldest living Hall of Famer. Here's a copy of my 1954 Topps Willie Mays, a beautiful SGC3. Willie Mays is arguably the most talented baseball player of all time. I think his cards are one of the safest places to go into for a long-term investment. Willie Mays is an iconic name, and you will see his stuff appreciate over the coming years, especially as Topps starts to further promote, Fanatics starts to further promote, and obviously with where Willie Mays is in his life and career, his stuff is only going to appreciate. So he is the first player of the 4 that I would say would be the safest place and the place that I personally would focus concentrating a lot of my personal investment vintage cards. The second name of the 4 most important vintage players that I would invest into right now for the long term would be Jackie Robinson. So here's a copy of my 1954 Jackie Robinson card, as well as I have a 1955 Jackie Robinson doubleheader right here. Jackie Robinson, when you think of that name, you don't just think of baseball history. You think of American history. And to have Jackie Robinson cards now ahead of the hobby potentially 10xing is incredibly important. The demand for these cards will continue to go up. Jackie Robinson's name and legacy will never die. He's one of, if not the single most important person, historical figure in the game of baseball, and he's absolutely a great investment for now and for the long term. The third player, which I unfortunately don't have a copy of his baseball card at the moment, one of my dream cards is his 1933 Gowdy. I'm sure you can guess it, Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is the most recognized name in baseball history, period. People that know nothing about sports will be able to tell you who Babe Ruth was, and most of the time they'll tell you who's the greatest baseball player ever. His 1933 Gowdy has gone up significantly in value over the last, call it 5 to 10 years, and even his basic low-grade 33 Gowdies will still run anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000. I think very confidently in my lifetime, I will see those same low-grade Babe Ruth cards probably going from $20,000 to $25,000 easily. I think he's one of the safest investments over the long term, and as more collectors come into the hobby, most people will always want to know, what is a Babe Ruth card worth? So with that, there's only one player left in my top 4, my Mount Rushmore of vintage collectible player cards that you should have, and that is Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle is one of the most important players in the hobby because his name is attached to the #1 highest card sale of all time. His SGC 9.5 1952 Topps card went for a record $12 million last year at auction. His name is always going to be associated with the most valuable baseball card of all time, just like Honus Wagner. Mickey Mantle, however, has a very long playing career and a number of different cards that you're able to invest into. So you don't need to own a 52 Topps Mantle to see and secure longer-term investing potential out of Mickey Mantle. So I think Mickey Mantle will always be a great buy. Some of his stuff in the late 60s you can get for as cheap as $200. In his early playing years cards, of course, 1951 Bowman, 52 Topps, 52 Bowman, 53 Topps. These go, for a lot of money. I know some of the 53 Topps low grade you can get for a couple $1,000s, but he still will always hold his value. He is the darling of the hobby. People will always love Mickey Mantle. And that rounds out my 4 most important vintage cards to own ahead of the 10xing of the hobby. So to summarize, Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, and Mickey Mantle. So I wanted to cover that. Just to wrap up the show today, as I don't have a guest yet and I'm working on getting a guest schedule, I did want to talk about my recent TikTok live ban. Unfortunately, I was unable to go live the last couple days because TikTok banned my ability to go live. They're starting to crack down on people that are buying and selling through the TikTok live platform. I'm still going to try to go on live. TikTok has been one of my strongest platforms in terms of building an audience, but I am planning on starting to go on YouTube live more in order to kind of offset the chance that TikTok starts to go down in terms of engagement. So check out my TikTok lives. I'm still going to be trying to do that about 3 times a week. Please join the Facebook group. I'm still going to be posting content consistently on TikTok and YouTube, but that is the plan go forward, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I'm looking at getting more content up in the near future. Thank you all so much. This is episode 2 of the Bonkers Card Podcast. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, guys.